This experience happened when I was 16 years old. At that time I was still living in the countryside. My home was far from school, so I lived in the school dormitory during the week and could only return home on weekends or during vacations. My family's financial condition was not very good, and I understood how hard my parents worked. In order to ease the burden of my family, I would help my family work every time I came home. We have a flock of sheep at home and they are the main source of income for the family. Because of the economy, we rarely bought feed for the sheep. We usually cut the grass and came back to feed them. One afternoon, my brother and I were about to go to the corn field to cut the grass. After a while, the sky gradually became gray. I knew a rainstorm was coming. The rain seemed to be particularly heavy this year. We had to go home as soon as possible. However, just as we were halfway home, the rain got heavier and we couldn't go on. We looked around for a place to shelter from the rain. The area around us was empty, with only a few trees scattered across the land. We decided to run towards the nearest tree, hoping it would provide us with some shelter. The clothes we were wearing were already soaked with rain. As we stood there, the rain continued to fall on the ground, creating a blurred landscape. In that open place, there were only the two of us and the tall tree. Just then, a bolt of lightning illuminated everything around us. I looked up just in time to witness the scene. The lightning struck the tree and a dazzling light erupted from the top. Time seemed to be frozen. In the light of the electricity, I saw the current conduct rapidly along the trunk of the tree, releasing a blinding light. At the same time, a loud sound echoed in the air. My body was instantly filled with the energy of the electric current, and a violent sense of tremor spread throughout my body. Instantly, I felt my body was bound by an invisible force. Unable to move. My heartbeat accelerated dramatically and there was a sizzling sensation in my chest. The sounds around me became blurred and distant, as if I was in an isolated world. I felt my consciousness gradually blurring. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a spacious and mysterious room. The room was constructed of black stone. The ceiling was so high that I could not see the top of the room. The borders of the whole room became very blurred. There was no furniture or decorations in the room, only 4 cold black stone walls. There was no texture on the walls, just a smooth and hard surface. Although the surrounding area was dim, a strange energy filled the air and made me feel very calm. I saw my brother still lying on the floor, and I went over and gently shook his shoulder to wake him up. He slowly opened his eyes, and his gaze was filled with confusion. Suddenly, a bright light shone into the room. It wasn't just ordinary light, it radiated an energy of peace and contentment. It was stronger than anything I had ever felt. We were drawn to that light and slowly moved closer to it. My brother and I did not communicate verbally, we communicated with each other on another level. We knew that this was a special experience. Led by that light, we entered a beautiful valley. This valley was covered with lush green grass. Under our feet was soft green grass and in the distance were magnificent mountains. The whole valley was enveloped in a golden glow, shining with a fascinating light. We also saw a lot of luminous bodies. They were like tiny glowing bubbles, which floated in the air or scattered on the grass. Each glowing bubble represents the presence of a soul. They emit a warm and soft glow. They have no specific form, but are full of energy and life force. We stand quietly in the valley and feel inner peace and tranquility. We no longer feel alone because we have established a silent connection with these spirits. I felt that this place was heaven, full of endless beauty. My brother, however, thought this place was just a temporary gathering place for souls. As time went on, the tiny luminous bodies began to converge on the far side of the valley. A pure white being gradually emerged, and it was the image of an angel. This angel was slightly different from what I had imagined. He was taller than the angel I had imagined. The angel first started a conversation with my brother. He gently and kindly told my brother that his mission on earth had been completed and that it was now time to go home. The brother's eyes were filled with mixed emotions. The angel explained to my brother that his journey on earth was over and that he had done his best. Now he could let go of all his burdens and return to the home where he truly belonged. I stood by and watched all of this in silence. I could feel my brother's inner struggle. I longed to return to earth with my brother and to our family. I took a step closer to the angel and expressed my heart's desire. I wished that my brother and I could go back together. We still have a lot of unfinished business and a family waiting for us. Please give us this opportunity to return to earth and continue our journey. The angel gazed at me tenderly. He seemed to understand my determination. Child, every soul has its own journey and destiny. You must understand that it is not a decision that I can change. I continued, I understand this. My brother is only 11 years old, and his life is just beginning. And my family, they have been worrying and praying for us. We want to go back and give them comfort and warmth. The angel replied, I can understand how you feel. I will take you to another place that may help you. I nodded, my heart filled with hope. My brother hugged me and said, Brother, I want to go back with you. Guided by the angel, we began to move upward. It was as if we were floating in a gravity-free environment. After we passed through the clouds, we saw a magnificent building. The building was made of pure white marble. Its outer walls were covered with beautiful carvings. We came to the door of the building. The door was open and a soft glow was coming through. As we entered the hall, we were struck by the endless beauty and majesty. The hall was spacious and grand, filled with a sacred atmosphere. There are tall pillars and magnificent frescoes. We continued on through the hall and came to a wide square. Suddenly, our attention was drawn to a beautiful glow. We turned our heads to look and saw Jesus smiling at us. The presence of Jesus was filled with infinite love and warmth. My children, I know all about you. Your families are here on earth and are praying for you. I understand that you want to return to them and bring them comfort and warmth. However, returning to earth is not an easy task. I need you to consider it carefully. He continued, I know the longing and attachment in your hearts, but the human world is full of challenges and sufferings. You must be prepared to face all kinds of trials. Returning to earth may be a difficult journey. My brother and I looked at each other and nodded firmly. We understood that although life was full of difficulties, we were willing to take it all on in order to return to our family. Jesus gently reached out and stroked the top of our heads. His palm was warm and soft, as if to impart endless courage to us. He said to us, Children, your decision is full of love and courage. Before you will be a new journey, and you will not be alone. I will send my messengers to protect and guide you. Go, return to the world of humanity, spread love and hope, and bring joy and warmth to your families. Another angel appeared beside us, clad in a long white robe and a shining halo on his head. The angel leads us, and with a mystical chanting, we leave Jesus. We were in a peaceful and mysterious environment, filled with warmth and loving energy. We gradually faded into the light. Our figures became indistinct, as if wrapped in a faint halo of light. As time passed, we gradually merged into the light, as if we became part of it. We began to descend rapidly, the air whistling around us. When we returned to Earth, we hovered above the great trees. I saw our bodies lying still on the ground, as if there were no signs of life. The angel noticed our condition and immediately sprang into action. He reached out his left hand and helped us re-enter our bodies. His hand gently touched our chests, transmitting a magical power. I felt a violent tremor, as if I had reconnected with my body. I could feel the rhythm of my breathing, the beating of my heart. After becoming one with my body again, I slowly opened my eyes. Soon, my neighbors found us. They immediately notified my parents. When my parents heard the news, they rushed to the scene. They hugged my brother and me with worry. My father decided to take us to the hospital. I said to my father, "Dad, we are fine. I feel fine and I am not in any physical discomfort." He still insisted that we be taken to the hospital. In the hospital, the doctor performed a series of physical examinations. The results showed that there was nothing wrong with my body and I was in good health. However, my brother seemed to have suffered some damage to his lungs. The doctor recommended that my brother be kept in the hospital for observation and treatment. My brother spent a week in the hospital. His lungs gradually recovered and his breathing became easier and more normal. People around me often tell me how lucky I am. I know that God has been there for me and that He helped me. God gave me a second life. Since then, I can feel that God has been by my side, giving me strength and guidance. It has been 29 years since this experience and I face life with a positive attitude every day. I now have a very happy family life and I have a lovely son who is the most precious gift God has given me. As I get older, I have a strong urge to do so. I want to send an important message to the world that God and heaven are real. I hope that one day everyone will be able to feel God's love firsthand, as I did. I hope that everyone can live with love and forgiveness. I hope that through my story, I can bring hope and inspiration to others. Even if we have different beliefs, I believe that love and peace are the goals we pursue together. In February 1998, the cold weather enveloped the city. At that time, I was studying philosophy as a major. The subject was fascinating and challenging for a young man who was an avid thinker. I used to spend a lot of time debating with Christians about their faith. My Christian friends and I shared insights with each other. At the time, I was renting an apartment with a classmate. One night, we got into a heated argument. We often had conflicts over various issues due to our different living habits. These accumulated grievances finally exploded that night. I decided to leave the place temporarily. Another classmate of mine lived in a nearby apartment, and I decided to look for him. When I arrived at his apartment, I found him with his friends. They were listening to music, talking and drinking. I joined their party. The setting allowed me to relax and relieve stress for a while. As the alcohol seeped in, my thoughts gradually became clouded and my judgment began to suffer. I didn't realize I had had many drinks. After a while, I wanted to go downstairs to use the bathroom. As I tried to walk down the stairs, my legs became weak. I tried my best to keep my balance, but the effects of alcohol made me lose control and I fell down at once. The moment I fell, I felt like the whole world was spinning. My body hit each flight of stairs and severe pain spread throughout my body. Finally, I hit my head on the wall. When I regained consciousness, I had appeared in the hospital. I remember that many people were gathered around my bed. I could see the worry on their faces. After the doctor saw my injuries, the doctor decided to perform further tests and scans on my head. The paramedics wheeled me into a room. I felt physical discomfort and tension. The scanner made a low sound and rotated around my head. After a while, I felt like I was entering a completely different realm. A strange sensation permeated around my body, as if I was floating upward. I left my body. The medical staff was still busy at work. I no longer felt pain or discomfort. Instead, I felt a sense of peace. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying on a bed. There was nothing else in the room but the bed. The room was very bright, but I could not see the light source. Just then, I saw a door. It looked different from the surrounding rooms and gave off a special glow. Curiosity drove me toward the door, and I reached out my hand and gently pushed the door open. Suddenly, I felt an inexplicable suction, as if there was an invisible force pulling me outward. For a moment, I lost my balance. I finally landed on a piece of grass. The grass looked extraordinarily vibrant under the sunlight. The wind around me blew gently, giving me a touch of freshness. This place felt very strange to me. There were no buildings or streets. Only endless grass and blue sky. I began to explore the grass. My feet felt like I was one with nature as I stepped on the soft grass. After I walked over a small hill, a group of people appeared in front of me. They were gathered together, wearing black clothing. My footsteps paused for a moment, and I felt an unusual sense of tension and fear. As I approached them, I saw my father and mother. Their eyes were red and swollen, and my mother was crying uncontrollably. To my dismay, I realized that the scene before me was my funeral. The coffin was covered with white flowers. There was also a headstone with my name and birthday in the cemetery, which made me feel incredible. This discovery threw me into confusion and despair. I didn't know what had happened. My emotions became very confused. I approached my father and mother and tried to communicate with them. However, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I called out and touched, they seemed unable to perceive my presence. They continued to cry. To them, I had left this world. I wanted to tell them that I was alive, I wanted to hug them and comfort them. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break this invisible barrier. The people around me gradually dispersed and left the cemetery, leaving only me and the silence. I stared at my tombstone, the handwriting clearly engraved on it, which was my former name and birthday. The scene touched my heart deeply. I tried to touch my own body, but my hand went right through it. It was as if I had become an invisible being. Suddenly, a powerful force pulled me back to the hospital. I saw myself lying on a bed, wrapped in white bedding. My face was very pale. Doctors and nurses were busily moving through the corridors. After a while, the doctors left the room one by one. I heard one of the doctors whisper to another doctor that we had lost him. The words plunged me into endless sadness and despair. Only one doctor remained by my bedside, and he stood there silently, his eyes revealing a deep frustration. I could feel the struggle and confusion inside him. I tried to get close to him and tell him that I was fine now. However, I was beyond the boundaries of reality and I could not interact with him in any way. Finally, this doctor also left the room. It was at this point that my soul once again moved upward uncontrollably. When I passed through the hospital ceiling, I came to a mysterious place. A bright light pervaded the surroundings, and everything was filled with peace and tranquility. This place seemed to be a boundless universe, filled with endless energy. A powerful energy was injected into my soul. My existence transcended the bonds of matter and was no longer limited by time and space. I felt light and free. I looked at my arms curiously, and I noticed that they had not lost their original form, but the substance that made them up was different. They were made up of a pure and bright white air mass that emitted a warm and serene glow. This substance seemed to be a pure energy. I felt that I was no longer an independent individual, but interconnected with the entire universe. The boundary between me and the universe became blurred, and I could feel other souls. Suddenly, a light more dazzling than mine came close to me. This light was as bright as the sun. And I could not see the scene around me. A gentle but firm male voice came into my ears. His voice was full of authority and wisdom. The man told me that I couldn't go on because someone had made a mistake that had caused me to be sent to this place by mistake. He explained that I had to return to Earth and complete my mission there before I could continue my journey. The man's voice was full of care and guidance, and his words contained endless wisdom. He explained to me the purpose and responsibility of my existence and reminded me of the mission that still needed to be accomplished on Earth. After this man's voice faded, I felt a force that was pulling me back to Earth, back to the reality I knew so well. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying in a dark and cold room. The surrounding area was filled with an eerie aura, and the dim lights cast eerie shadows. This sight was in stark contrast to the bright world I had experienced before, which made me feel very depressed. The air around me was filled with a strange putrid smell. I noticed some cold metal instruments and old medical equipment in the room. I was more than sure I was in a morgue. I tried to stand up, but I could barely move. My heart was racing and sweat was dripping from my forehead. I realized that I had to get out of this horrible place as soon as possible. In the corner of the morgue, I noticed a broken trash can on the floor. With all my strength, I banged the trash can on the table. I hoped that someone outside would hear it. I hoped that my actions would attract the attention of the hospital staff and help me escape this horrible situation. Suddenly, there were footsteps outside the door and I knew my efforts had not been in vain. A paramedic entered the morgue with a look of panic and confusion on his face. When I woke up again, it was 4 days later. I felt shocked and confused. I didn't know what had happened in that time, why I had lost consciousness, and how I had reawakened. I found myself in a comfortable hospital bed, surrounded by clean white sheets and soft pillows. The room was bright and tidy, in contrast to the previous morgue. The sunlight illuminated the entire room, making me feel very warm. I lay quietly on the bed and thought back to my previous experience. As I was deep in thought, a doctor came into the room. The doctor explained to me that I had suffered a serious head injury. I was taken to the hospital for emergency treatment. I was in a coma during which my heart had stopped beating. He told me that I was a medical miracle. He said I was an incredible survivor. It was at this time that my mother walked into the room. Her eyes were filled with worry, and the moment she saw me wake up, her face burst into a happy smile. She went to the bedside and gently held my hand, her eyes filled with tears. She said in a trembling voice, "Son, you're finally awake. I have been praying for you." She gently stroked my hair, as if to remove all the uneasiness I felt inside. When I got home, I sat next to my mother and told her everything I had experienced in the hospital. My mother listened quietly to every word I said, her face filled with amazement. She grabbed my hand tightly and her eyes revealed a deep awe. My mother said, "Son, what an incredible thing you have gone through. I cannot imagine how lost and alone my world would be if I lost you. I believe that God saw how strong and brave you were, and He was not willing to let you go. He sent you back to me at a critical time, a true miracle." She hugged me tightly and tears flowed down her face. My mother thanked God with all her heart. She was convinced that only God could save me at the moment my heart stopped beating. I listened quietly to my mother's words and felt the faith and determination deep in her heart. Although I did not have the same strong faith as my mother, I understood the love and care she expressed. I am grateful that God sent me back to my mother so that we could continue to live together. Since then, I have passed on my faith and love to those around me. I believe God's guidance will lead me through every stage of my life. This experience has made us more aware of the fragility and preciousness of life and inspired me to cherish and treat each other more kindly.